All right, this is Mark Gottfried, and this is called the Coach. I'm just kind of starting this podcast world, so this is called The Front Row, and you're one of my first couple guests. So first of all, thank you so much. I know you got a lot going on every day, so thank you for joining me.
Well, when you retire, you don't have a lot, so it's pretty easy to fit in. I think today I've got one meeting, and I've got I don't even know if I got anything else today. This might be it. I could get a haircut, I know that, but there were the days you had to fight to fit the haircut in, you know.
Sometimes people ask me, me, Coach, I say, I'm just piddling. I piddle around, play pickleball. That's about it. But all right, before we start, let me do this for some. I know most everybody will obviously know most about you and your career. And let me say before, I'm going to run through a couple things here. You're kind of some stats along the way that I think that jump out to me. But Coach, I want to say this to you. I've always, as a young person and as a coach, from a distance, I've always had great respect for you. Not only because you won for a long time, and we may never see that again, but I have always felt when I've been in meetings with you and different places with you, and that you're just authentic and real, and I've always appreciated that about you. So I've always respected that, even when I played, coached against you. I always had great respect for you, and I mean that with all my heart.
It. Way in the beginning, I found out that the only friends coaches have are coaches. Mm-hmm. When it comes right down to it, because you get so caught up in your season, you don't really see too many of your own friends. Friends that I had friends when I started coaching that I used to play golf with. Once I got the head coaching job, I never played golf with them again. I literally almost never saw them again because you get caught up. And in the coaching world, when you're in meetings or when you're battling against each other, the only people that really understand what you're going through is the other coach. And I determined right away, early, I don't want to get in a fight with that guy. Mm-hmm. I don't want to fight with coaches. Mm-hmm. They're the only people you can really talk to about what you do. And I think I only had one fight. That was Big John Thompson. I had a battle for a couple of years. But eventually we worked through that, and we became really good friends. And it was a great rivalry. But at the end of it, not in the beginning, but at the end, we were really good friends. But, yeah, in the coaching world, you just don't have a lot of people that understand what you're doing, and I always thought it was important to give advice to younger coaches, help out younger coaches, and I'm honest. I mean, people might not like what I say, but it's I try to be honest about the things I see, and I'm sure sometimes I'm wrong, but it's what I see. It's not fake talk or stuff like that. I grew up coaching as Lou Carnesecca, and he just, I always admired him because he just said what it was, mm-hmm. Let's go fight, and we're going to try to beat each other up. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, he'd shake hands and say, great game. And he'd tell the press that was a great team. Syracuse played great. And it was never like, well, we didn't do this or we let them, it was just straightforward, being mm-hmm. honest. And I always appreciated that. I thought that was the right way to be mm-hmm. as a coach.
Mm-hmm. Well, from a distance, I've watched you, and I've respected that about you, because I think when you talk, people know it's genuine. Like, you're not trying to fluff it up. You say what you feel, and like you said, sometimes people may not agree, but what people were getting all the time, I thought, even as a young coach, and is you're getting the real deal. This is his honest opinion, and he's not full of it and all that. So I always appreciated that. But Coach, you did so much throughout your career, and obviously winning a national championship and a number of Final Fours, and I think I read it was 34 or 35 NCAA tournaments, and Big East championships, gold medals, coaching some very talented player. I want to talk to you about that in a minute, players. But and then obviously the Hall of Fame. I mean, for you, what was that like, Coach, when you learned that you were going into the Hall of Fame? Like, what did that mean to you, and kind of how did that even happen? How does that go about? I mean, you get a phone call or a letter, or What happened?
You get a phone call, but it's an unbelievable feeling. In coaching, you obviously in college coaching, you want to win a national championship. I mean, I remember the first time I went to the Final Four, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I'd been coaching 12 years, and we had some success, but we didn't make the Final Four, and that's what people talk about. And making that first Final Four was unbelievable, and we lost in the last play, but it was unbelievable experience. But to win it, there's nothing quite like that. And then to get into the Hall of Fame, you don't plan on that. You don't think about that. And when you go down there and you see Bill Russell and Red Auerbach and all the players there, all the people there, Knight and Dean Smith, all the coaches, the players, you don't even think like, no, I'm not in here. The funniest thing that ever happened to me is we won a game at Cincinnati the year after I think I got in the Hall of Fame. It was a really good game. We played well. They were pretty good. We beat them right at the end, and I was walking out, and there was one fan standing there not even 25 feet away, and he yelled at me, "Boeheim, you may be in the Hall of Fame, but you're the worst in the Hall of Fame." And I just laughed. I didn't even know what to say. I should have said, "Well, I'm in there."
Yes, right. I'm in, pal. How about this one? So you're coaching. How old were you when you became the head coach at Syracuse? You were how old?
I was 31
Wow.
when I got the job. I've been the assistant since I played. I played and finished and just started right as an assistant. I never left. And as a grad assistant, then a full-time assistant, and got the job when I was 31 years old.
Interesting. When I was at UCLA and we won at 95, and I took the job at Murray State. I'm excited, but then I kind of wake up in the morning, kind of almost like, what did I just do? And you're nervous a little bit. So like when they gave you the head coaching job, I mean, I'm sure part of that you're probably excited, but you're probably a little scared. Not scared, but you're nervous. You're like, oh shit, I got my hands full now. This is a different deal.
I was scared. There was 3 guys on the committee. One guy didn't want to hire me, and the other 2 one was up in the air. The other one was kind of my corner. But I walked out of the meeting and said, "I'm leaving if I don't get the job today." And luckily, the guy that wanted me was the head of the committee, so he came down and got me. But he said, "Well, Jim, we're going to give you 3 years." I said, "No, I need 4." and he said, "All right, we'll give you 4." And I mean, I worried that I'd make the 4 years. That's you worry as a coach. Yep. The guys that don't worry just got such a big ego. I'm not like that.
Right.
I mean, their egos are so big that nothing's ever going to happen. I don't think that way. So I was worried I'd make it. I know the next day I drove to New York City, and Rick Pitino got married that day. I took him out of his hotel room and talked to him for 4 hours about he had to come to Syracuse with me as an assistant.
How about that?
And that story's been told a lot. I don't think I would have done that 20, 30 years later, but I did it then. And we went right on the road, and I signed Roosevelt Bowie, and Rick signed Louis Orr, and they were all Americans for us. We had 4 great years. At that time, it was probably the best start any program had with a new coach. We won 100 games in 4 years, and went to the tournament every year. So it was. But even after that, you worry. I mean, I worried after 40 years that I was going to be able to win the next year. You always worry. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
1 year we were supposed to be pretty good. We started out 1-4 in the league, and everybody was saying I'm done, and this was 25 years ago, but we won 10 straight games and went to the tournament. So, you never know what's going to happen in this business. I always felt like I just hope I can get through the next year, and then when we got through it, I'd be pretty happy. We usually went to the tournament. I think the thing I'm proudest of, we went in the 30. I think we went I've kind of lose track. 36 times in the NCAA tournament. I think 20 we went to the Sweet 16. Nobody really talks about that. It's 5 Final Fours, but it's pretty hard to go at the time you're in it to the Sweet 16. And several times we went as a 8, 9, 10. We went as I think 11 seed one year. That's really hard to do.
Coach, here's a question for you. Okay, as a guy who's coached, and I coached for a long time, but I've always admired, and I think the era is different too. Maybe the coaches are a little different. They move around a lot more, but I always used to say one of the most impressive things is like staying power. Like I look at yourself, obviously Mike at Duke, I look at Tom Izzo at Michigan State, and there's a handful of others. And if you go back a few more years, guys stayed at one place for a long time, maybe more than they do now. But why do you think? Obviously, you're winning. You've won a great deal, but you had some years too, like everybody, that weren't as good as others. But the kind of the staying power, in my view, to me, that's like the ultimate, thumbs up. Like, wow, that guy survived and did it for a long time. And you had to have different ADs, you had to have different presidents and people you worked for, worked with. Kind of like what if you go back and say that you were able to accomplish that? How? I mean, winning obviously helps, but how? Through all that?
I mean, you really have to win. We had years where we had 3 or 4 years in a row where we won 30 games. But then we had a couple years we went to NIT. We only won 18, 19. But the administration here has always been behind me. I mean, they always, okay. And the fans. I think the fans are the key. So talk radio would be saying, hey, only won 18 games. We got to think about somebody. But 22,000 people came to every game.
Right.
So when you have that support, then you're gonna keep your job. It's when you go from 22,000 down to like 12,000. Right. That's when you're gonna lose your job. And we were lucky. I mean, we had some ups and downs. We had some things off the court that weren't great. But I think Syracuse always was 100% behind me. You have to have the administration behind you 100%, whoever the president was, AD was. I had one AD for a long 30 years, and then I had a couple more. But it's been, I've always had that support, and the fans have always supported us. And I remember one year we were 7, just barely got to 18 wins the last game. And the last game we were not going to the tournament. It was obvious that year, and we had 24,000 people in the game at the Dome for a game that didn't matter. So our fans have always been important. I think Bill Guthridge might have said, the great assistant at North Carolina, head coach there, the most important thing you can have as a college coach is a fan base. Not the arena, not the school, not the, money, recruiting money, buildings. You got to have fans. I remember when Connecticut, before Jim Calhoun got there, they couldn't win. Well, we would go to Hartford and play them, and they'd be 500 or less, and they'd be sold out, 16,000 people. So when Jim came in there, he had that. You show kids that support, you can recruit kids. Recruiting's a lot different today. It doesn't have to. You can have no people there. If you have NIL money, you can get players.
Different world now. Different world.
It's Coach, a whole different world today. But back then, it mattered that you had that fan support and administration support. I always had that, and it's fortunate to be in that position.
Here's a question you've been asked a million times, but I've never asked you this question, and so I'm curious myself. But you obviously, over the years, my team's played against your team, so you play against your matchup or the 2-3 zone, or I don't really know what you actually call it. But what I was always impressed with is kind of how you made adjustments and you would take certain things away. But if you go all the way back, Coach, like where did that start? And then how did you come to where you believed in that so much? And that's how you're going to play. And I'm not trying to reinvent basketball every year. I'm going to keep it somewhat simple, but we're going to do this and do it well.
Well, I'll give you the short version. I played zone in high school a little bit. It was good. I came to Syracuse, and we played some zone here, both, but we played some zone. And then we played against Penn State when they had played a great zone. and we couldn't do anything against it. And we had a really good team. we just lost by 15. We just couldn't do anything against their zone. It was a little different zone. It was a 2-3 with a little different, kind of the Fresno State principles where you interchange the center and the forward, but it was a lot of 2-3. And then as a coach, we start out, I had great physicality with Derek Coleman and Sherman, a lot of guys. We played more 60, 70% man, but we always played 20 or 30% zone. And it was always effective, particularly end of game situations, particularly against some teams. Back then you played teams that just couldn't shoot. Mm-hmm. You know, they were all drivers. So why fight it? We could have beat them playing man-to-man, but why fight it? We beat them by 20 playing zone. Mm-hmm. So we had that going. And then all of a sudden in 2003, when we had Carmelo and Jerry, they were freshmen, we had a great team offensively, but defensively we were struggling. We went to the zone. We won the national championship, and it was because of the zone. You know, we could have never beat Kansas playing man-to-man, never. And then each year after that, we kind of back and forth. And in coaching, when you play both, like 50-50, you have to prepare both for both in the game you're coming to play. You have to get ready to play your man-to-man, their man-to-man offense and their zone offense. Zone offenses isn't as complicated because they're fairly simple, but man-to-man is complicated. So you play 2 or 3 games in a week, and you're trying to get ready for both. And we weren't quite as good physically man-to-man, where we were thinner and longer. So around, I think it was 7 or 07 or 8, we start out man getting beat, switch to zone 1. Start out the next game man-to-man, getting beat, switch to the zone 1 game. Finally, I just said to myself, I don't need to be that smart to understand. Right. The zone's working, we're winning. Right. And the man-to-man's not. And if we spend more, because you have to spend more time on man-to-man than you do zone in practice. 10, 15 minutes is enough for zone. You need an hour for man-to-man, different drills, different attacks. So I said, we'll put more time into our zone, and now we're going to be better in our zone, which we were. And about that time, other schools stopped playing zone. So when we played a team, they hadn't played against the zone in 5 games. So now they're trying to practice against the zone in practice, which isn't any good because they don't play zone. So now they come to see us, and all of a sudden they're seeing a good zone. So I think that was a big advantage for us. And we just got to a point where it was very effective for many years. The last 2 years, it wasn't as effective. And I really felt like we had to start changing. And we did, but we couldn't do it. So we had 2 very mediocre years. And when I decided it was time to retire, and we had the coach in place, and Adrian knew he would have to transition over to man. He might play some zone, but he knew he had to transition. There's too many good shooters, too many teams that can play against zones, and it wasn't as effective. We also didn't have great defensive players. And I don't care what defense you're playing. If your guys aren't defensively oriented guys, you're going to struggle in any defense. But I really thought it was time to switch over, and I was done. And the next coach has to do that. It was time. And Adrian actually has recruited very well quickly to get more quickness and speed.
Tell me if you think this is accurate. So I was, I can't remember where I'd have been coaching, maybe Alabama, but you played in the NCAA tournament, South Alabama, Ronnie Arrow, and my dad was the athletic director there. And I remember Ronnie called me, I want to say it was in the tournament, but I think I remember telling him, I said, Ronnie, I've never coached. At that point, I don't think any of my teams had played you, but I said, from a distance, If you look at the stat sheet at the end of the game and your team has taken 35 or more threes, I'm telling you, you're getting beat. You're going to get beat. Like, you just can't settle for that. And I remember watching the game. They had a big kid that was really good, by the way, in the middle. I can't remember his name. But anyway, they had a big kid. But end of the game, late game, middle of the second half, as the game wore on, and they actually played you kind of tough for a little while. That you beat them there. But I just remember watching the game, and it's 7 minutes to go, and all of a sudden they're just jacking up threes left and right. And so I was just sitting there saying, if you settle in for that, you just probably at the end of the game, you're probably, unless you just got great shooters and you're just making every shot, or high percentage. But would you agree, if you were playing against yourself, your teams, would you think that's fairly kind of accurate, or what would you say?
Yeah, you have to get the ball inside some. You have to offensive rebound if you're good at it. That's what North Carolina always did with us. They just jack up a shot and they'd have three big guys underneath. And
go get it.
Coach Wooden did that at UCLA. I remember him talking at a clinic, and he put three guys like in a triangle and had, Bibby or, somebody shoot it and just pound it on the boards. And you have to have a mixture. I remember Coach Beeline, is a great coach when he was at West Virginia. We played them here one day, and they were better than us. And they took 35. They made 17 threes, and we beat them by 2 because they didn't get a foul shot in the game. They never took a foul shot.
Wow.
We had like 24 free throws, but they just shot. They never went inside, and you can't. It's hard to win that way. You have to have something inside, a mixture, and if you're getting a lot of threes, we try to match up against a better three-point shooter to try to get somebody else to take it. But I remember we played you, and we weren't great in Phoenix, and you had a guy that hadn't made any threes, and he made 4 in a row in the beginning of the game.
That's right.
When that happens, that does put us in trouble because we're kind of expecting, okay, we're going to really concentrate, focus on this guy and that guy. But, when a guy, an outlier comes in there and makes some, we had Butler beat the first time they went to the Final Four, and their point guard was 1 for 18 from the last 3 games he played. And we're up 5 with a minute to go. He launches a 3. It hits the back rim, goes straight up in the air, 10 feet, and comes down through. And now it's a 2-point game. We end up losing by 1. But the odds are he's missing that shot 90% of the time. But, sometimes it goes that way. Usually the end of games, when you're playing zone, it's harder to make the 3. It's a 2-3-point game. That guy's got to make a 3 to tie it. It's not that easy as it is in the beginning. And the other thing is, yourself, end of games, I don't have the absolute stats, but empirically, a lot of games are won in 1-point games, driving, getting fouled, making 2 free throws. That's how the game ends. You lose on free throws. We don't give up those free throws. So you got to make a shot. So, and that's not always 100% the case, but that happens a lot. I know one period of time, we'd won 18 out of 19 overtime games. And I think it's end of games, short periods of time, zone's effective.
I would think
Very
too.
effective.
I would think too. Most coaches, late game situations, they have something in their back pocket, whether it's a man-to-man set offensively, that I'm going to get this guy the ball in this place. I'm going to run this play against man-to-man defense. And in a zone, you're a little bit, you kind of end up with what's there. You'd like this guy over here to shoot the ball, but, he may not have the opportunity. And sometimes you end up with somebody that's it's not the guy you really want to shoot, is going to end up having the ball and maybe having an open shot and takes a shot one way or another. You may make it, but chances are that's not what you want to run. If I'm playing against you late game, I want to go to my go-to play. This is what I want to go to, and I'm going to get this guy the ball in this spot. And so some of that you got to deal with as well.
Yeah, that's the advantage of the zone. You can't run your one play for your one guy. And that helps. I mean, a lot of games, that's a difference maker.
Yeah.
We try to get somebody like in the Butler game to take the shot that isn't likely to make it, but sometimes that guy does make it.
Yep.
And,
Coach, let me switch gears. All right, so now you're an Olympic coach, and you guys, that first group, I think, if I get my years right, was that was you and Nate McMillan. Is that correct? Your first Mike D'Antoni. And so here's a question, and I was actually in Vegas. I think I watched that team practice a little bit over at the high school there. But you bring these guys together, and a lot of people that watch the game, it's like they watch your games at Syracuse or when I was at NC State, they have no idea what went into getting your team ready to play. They just think you practice a little bit and go shoot the ball and win a game. But now you've got these guys and Kobe and all these guys, and you got great big personalities who are really, really good players, and they're going to be in a different role on this team than they are, in their NBA team. When you guys got all them guys together, what did you think? Like, did you see, okay, this is going to be a challenge, or were there certain things just like, oh boy, we got our hands full with this one right here. We got to get this worked out. Like, what were some of those things and challenges with that group, with those big personalities?
Well, when we took over, Mike Krzyzewski is the best mental coach that has ever coached NBA or college. He's good X and O's, but mental coach. He can get guys to buy into what the team needs to do. The NBA players, by the way, were great. They wanted to do that because you remember they're coming off the Olympics in Greece where they got killed. So they didn't come in like, well, we know what we're doing here. They came in thinking we just got kicked in our butt. So they listened to everything Mike told them. They wanted to win. Dwayne Wade said, I'll come off the bench. Chris Paul said, I'll come off the bench. There was a lot of that. And nobody cared about how many points they got. They just said, we're going to – and we beat everybody by 35 points all the way. The exhibitions, the games. We knew when we got to Spain it was not going to be that way. We beat them in the play-in games. We beat Spain by 20, but those teams lay down in those games. The thing about foreign teams in the Olympics, they know they're going to get beat. They just lay down. They get ready for the next game. They do that all the time. We don't do that. We want to win every game, but that's the way it works. But remember, going back a couple of years, we didn't have Kobe in the Worlds, and we lost. So then Kobe came. LeBron, all these guys were young. Kobe came in and showed them, here's what we're – he took after people the first day of practice. He knocked people down. And these other guys are like going, what, Kobe, what's going on? Well, this is what it's going to be. And so we got better because of Kobe. And sure enough, in the Spain game, when it came down to close – they had the Gasol brothers. They had two great European guards. They were in their prime. They had won the world. They thought they were the best team. 2-point game. Kobe makes a double pump jumper, steals the ball, makes pass. We win. It was Kobe Bryant. LeBron was there. A lot of guys were there, and that got us going. And from then on in, we had another tough game in London with Spain in the second Olympics, but by then, LeBron and Kevin Durant were ready. Kobe played well, but Kevin and LeBron took over the end of the game. So you have those superstars, you should win, but you got to get everybody to buy into that. And that's what Mike Krzyzewski did. He got everybody to buy in. This is what it's going to be. We had the best players. They gave up themselves to play and win, and that's how we won 3 gold medals. And if you don't have the best players now, Pop won it last time, but it was close, razor close. He didn't have the best players. We had the best players. Now, going forward, if they get the best players, they can win. But the world's better now. But one thing that's happened with these world teams, the best players always used to play for Croatia, Serbia. Those guys are NBA stars. And they're getting hurt a little bit, and they're not all playing. So they can't afford to lose those guys. We can. We got enough players. We don't have to take the top 10. We can take the next 10, still be good. But like the next Olympics in France, Paris, that will be tough. France is good. They got a very good team. They got the young guy coming up now. That'll be a tough one to win. But we can still win if we had the best players. But it was great coaching those guys. We talked to NBA people. They said some of them wouldn't play deep. Some of them wouldn't do. They did. They did everything we asked them to do. But again, Mike was really good. If he could see they were getting tired, he just ended practice. He didn't try to be like a college coach would do, like we do, and say, "Let's go. We're going to go another half hour." He went, "Oh, all right, that's good.
Let's go home."
And that's how you coach some of those guys. But it was great.
Yeah,
saw the best basketball I've ever seen and probably ever will see. These guys, we routinely scored 35, 40 points in the first quarter against almost everybody in the world. And those were teams that were competitive with us before this all started. So the other teams were amazed. Teams that had been playing well against us, and the coaches after the game would come over and say, "Holy cow," because we'd beat them, good teams, Ukraine, and teams that Lithuania had given us real problems, and we beat them like the first exhibition game. I think we played by 40, and their coach was like, "Holy cow." We didn't see this coming.
Right. So when I was at NC State, Nate McMillan obviously played there, and he and I talked about this a bunch. But he talked to me about how Kobe just kind of set the tone. Like he told me stories about Kobe and just kind of how serious and how hard of a worker. And so, I'm living in Newport Beach now, so this was his, obviously all over the world he was beloved, but right here in Newport now, you're talking about people that had, came into contact with his family, and you talk about, beloved and, so tragic. But I enjoyed Nate, telling me stories about practices or in the training room or, just his interaction. So did you feel that as well, coaching Kobe? Like, man, like this guy is a wow, like one of them kind of guys, like just different, cut above.
He came in, worked out in the morning before we worked out at night. Same thing the next day, and then we're scrimmaging. A couple guys aren't going. He's on there. He's on their butt. He's like, "Come on, LeBron, let's go." And they'd look at him and say, "What? We're here. Let's go. We're here to play. We're here to win." Didn't. In a meeting, for one of the first meetings, he just got up and said, "Hey, we're here to win. I'm here to win. We're going to win." And the best story I can remember is we were playing Dominican Republic. We're up 45 points. And, starters are playing and not playing, so he's in a little bit then. And the kid, a really good player from Maryland, Vasquez, who played in the NBA, but he was coming out of college, is bringing the ball up, and Kobe's pressing him. Steals it and lays it in. And now they throw the ball into Vasquez again. He steals it and lays it in again, and Vasquez walks off. He walks off the court. And, their coach is up, calling a time. And Kobe comes over, and he's hot. I mean, we're up 49 points. And I remember saying, I said, "Kobe, we're up." He said, "I don't care. He's out here. I'm getting him. I'm getting him." That's it. That's what and that was just, that's the way he was. He was going to get somebody. Jordan's the only one I've seen like that. Same way. When Jordan went out there, they kept 3 extra guys in training camp at position because he wore them down, burned them up, and spit them out.
Isn't that crazy?
They don't know any other way to play.
Yeah.
That's the way they play.
Interesting.
They go at it 100%, no matter whether it's practice or what the score is. They're coming after you.
Yeah.
I mean, Gasol was his teammate. We playing them in the Olympics. He just knocked him over and hit him with a forearm. They were close friends.
Yeah.
And just Paul went like, "Go." He shook his head, man.
No. So, Coach, let me ask you this question. All right, college athletics. Here we go. We're going to dive deep now. So, you've seen more than all of us have seen combined. All right, so changing landscape. You got this NIL out there. You've got the portal. And then I tell people all the time, my opinion is they happened at kind of almost the same time, which to me makes it more tricky, I guess is the right word. So how do you see it? Adrian, obviously there at Syracuse is dealing with, everybody's dealing with it. Tell me your feelings about it.
Well, first of all, the NIL was a great idea, except you have people that want to win, and who have schools where they've already had cases where players were paid before this. So there was already apparatus in place. So now when you put NIL in, the theory was you sign autographs, you run camps, you do a couple things and get some money. Mm-hmm. My son, the first year NIL, made almost $100,000 just on $5,000 different things that people came to him with. We didn't do a thing. Mm-hmm. Our other two best players got $40,000, $45,000. Mm-hmm. The thing that bothered me is our other 7 players got nothing because we didn't do anything. All right? So now you see that happen. That's not good for your team. Mm-hmm. But the next year, all of a sudden, the collectives come in, and we're recruiting a kid, and he says, his parents say, well, he's getting $50,000 to go here. Well, we didn't have that. We weren't going to do that. I said, you can make NIL money here, but I don't know what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Could be 20, 50, I don't know. It's up to you. Mm-hmm. We lost that kid. So, and with the portal, a kid that's a pretty good player is doing well for you if you don't have NIL money for him. He would never transfer before because he didn't sit out here. But when you now can sit and play right away, you go. Mm-hmm. And, we lost a kid for $400,000 this year. That's going to happen. So, I don't think you can go backwards. And I don't think they could have made a rule that would be any different. Mm-hmm. They keep saying we're going to put guardrails. What? What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. So you can't say you can limit it to so much money because the Supreme Court has already said you can't do that. Nothing. Mm-hmm. So now you have these collectives springing up, or one guy at some places is raising all the money and taking care of 4 or 5 guys. Mm-hmm. That's not changing. So you have to have something to keep your players. You see, all of a sudden the player leaves and goes to a comparable school. Why did he do that? He was starting. Why would, has to be money. And you do read about the $1 million deals and stuff. So obviously everybody, I think at some places every player on the team, like I'm not going to name names, but a football team where every player on the team gets $40,000. Mm-hmm. That's $3 million right there. Mm-hmm. And if every player is getting 40, the top players are getting a lot more than that. Mm-hmm. So that's here, and I don't see it changing. I don't see an answer for it. This movement in conferences is crazy. Mm-hmm. You remember when we started, like in the ACC, you maybe got $8 million, $10 million from the league, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you made do. Mm-hmm. Then it went to 20. Mm-hmm. Then you got to 30. Mm-hmm. You did fine, right? You spent the money. Now you got to have 50. Well, if they get 50, they're just going to spend it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to really do anything different. Mm-hmm. And now you get all these travel issues for all the sports. And like basketball, football is not a big deal. And it's all for football anyway. Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. But like UCLA basketball, Southern Cal basketball, they've got to make 5 trips, 2,500 to 3,000 miles. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, but when I traveled, I went to Los Angeles once from Syracuse, we got killed. Mm-hmm. Our players had no energy. Mm-hmm. That's even when we went to Maui, we'd go out 3 days early to try to get ready. But everybody was in the same boat. Everybody traveled. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think kids in college travel that well. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the Big Ten, if the University of Panama could bring $10 million extra to the league, they'd put the University of Panama or Argentina in there. They would.
Without a doubt.
That's all this is about. Yeah. It's about money, and these are the college presidents. These are smart people. Mm-hmm. But they're not. They're running athletic departments. That's not what they do. No. They probably were a history professor or something. And I don't know where it ends up. Probably 4 major conferences, and everybody else is wherever they are, and they run the tournament and the football thing and everything.
Coach, I remember when I was at UC. You
don't really need the NCAA.
Yeah.
I mean, the compliance thing used to be if you took guys out for dinner, and players are taking coaches out for dinner now. You know? I mean, they got cars.
Yep.
They're getting cars. They do car commercials, you know. It's cheap for the car dealer. They give a kid a use of a car. Kid does a commercial. A friend of mine actually has a dealership. He had one of the players do a commercial, and he got 2 customers came in from another city. He says, I'm buying a car from you because you had my favorite player. So obviously, it's great for the players. And it would have been even greater if it had been done if it could naturally been done, but it wasn't going to ever be naturally.
Yeah,
not with the people that. I'm sure a couple of the collectives in some of these states probably raised $30 million in 2 phone calls or something.
Yeah,
you know that, but I don't know. In the past 40 years, there's always been something, and I always thought you could get out of it. It will work out. This will work out. That'll work. I don't have an answer. I talk to all the people I know and the NCAA, and they never ask coaches anyway.
No, never.
So, I'd ask Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and some of those guys about it, but they get presidents in a room who have no athletic background, and they make these decisions. I know in 20 years, they're going to look back and say, hey, why don't we go back into our own areas? Why are we playing that school way out? Why don't we just come back here? And it really, forget about the money. It's just better if you have your leagues in one solid area like it used to be. ACC, the Big East, the SEC, the Big 12, Pac-12. It was good. I mean, it was less travel. You made enough money. It doesn't matter how much money they make.
More.
And if you shrink it, TV's still going to want the games. They're still going to pay you, and you'll have enough money. But I don't know where this could possibly end up in a good place.
Right.
I mean, I've seen Congress has some things they put out. NCAA's put out a couple things. Nothing that says anything about guardrails. It says, well, you have to release what everybody's making, or transparency. Doesn't say anything in there about, well, how much you can get or can't get.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to, like an incoming prospect, you don't have to tell him what he's going to make. You can just say, well, our quarterback makes $1 million, and you're a quarterback. You don't have to tell him what he's going to get.
Here's an interesting thought, Coach. So I used to tell you, and I coached Ed O'Bannon for 5 years, and Ed O'Bannon kind of started the ball way back with his lawsuit and went to the Supreme Court. And, he's playing a video game with some buddies, and they're looking at it, and it's obviously his likeness. It's number 31. He's a tall, slender black guy shooting left hand. And the guy says, hey, Ed, what are you getting off of this? And Ed's obviously like, well, I don't get anything, and the ball started to roll. But I always used to say to people that, the NCAA, we would sign, and I was on some of the boards, our our Coaches Association, and, you'd listen, and, you get this $1 billion deal over a 7 or 8 year period. But the NCAA, there was no part of that ever was shared with the student athlete. Like, do you think, Coach, yes or no, I've always felt if they would have shared or found a way to include some of that, maybe we would have never gotten to the place where you end up with this NIL. Yes or no, maybe? What do you think?
I think we would have gotten to this. I think it would have looked better if we had done that. We did, remember 3 or 4 years ago, when we gave them the meals. So you can give your players meals now, really, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, really, and give them their meal money instead of giving them board money. So the kids were getting, $15,000, something like that, in meal money the last few years. So that was there. But no, we were going to, once you decided you're going to let them have their NIL rights, which I think they should have.
Yep.
sign autographs. It's just, you know, you had to see beyond that, well, wait a minute. Somebody's going to give this guy for doing autographs $10,000, you know, or to do a commercial. They're going to not give him $2,000. They're going to give him 50, because that's what NBA players get, or 100. And the Supreme Court said you can't limit. You know, at first they were going to try to limit how much kids would make. You know, if you do a commercial, it has to be reasonable, like 2,000 or whatever. But they couldn't do that. That's not going to work. That's illegal. So, I mean, I just don't think there's any. This was inevitable. The whole thing is because the $1 billion deal. Well, what people don't see is at Syracuse, we lose money in athletics because we take care of all the other sports. We have to fundraise. So even though there's a $1 billion deal, we're not making the money. The real problem is coaches' salaries. Coaches make this kind of money. That's the real problem. If coaches made $100,000, there'd be no problem. Scholarships worth $70,000. Give the kids some real money. They're getting $10,000 there. But when the coach makes $8 million, you're going to have a problem, and that's where we are. And people who have an agenda say, well, they're making all this money at the college. They're not. Look at the financials. Even big schools that, like Michigan, they 100,000 people. They spend all that money back on their athletic program. You know, but the real problem is coaches. Like our field hockey, nobody's saying pay the field hockey players. They work harder than we do. They work all the time. But their coach only makes 100,000, and you know, there's no big deal. But that's really the main problem. But like I said, I don't know where this is going. I don't think. I've talked to people way smarter than me, and they have no solution. And Congress is having trouble just deciding where the light bulbs are. They're not going to decide this deal. Right.
Hey, Coach, if they made you the president of the NCAA tomorrow, they said, Coach, it's your job. You can't say no. You have to take it. You're in, and you get to do anything you want to do. What's your first thought?
I don't think there's anything you can do, because if you do something, you can't change the transfer portal. Kids should be allowed to transfer and play. Making them sit out a year, that would really help, because the good players would never leave. They would stay and finish. But I don't think you can change that, and there's no way you can limit the money they make. So the only thing you could do is alumni can't, your boosters can't be involved in any way. They can't have a collective. They can't do anything. That would really limit what you're doing. But schools that used to break the rules would still do that. You'd still have that component. At least now, schools that don't break the rules, didn't pay players, can compete if they want to. They can. Well, we can raise money, and we'll pay players. And everybody's doing that in NIL. I mean, small schools, little schools, schools you wouldn't even think about are doing NIL stuff. I'm not going to say names, but schools that aren't in the top 100 are getting players $30,000, $40,000 because that's their only sport. That's their main sport at that school. Like I said, I don't think there is an answer to this. It's just going to keep going the way it's going. And I mean, it's just like facilities. Some people put more money into facilities that help them recruit, but you still got some players. You can still get some players from that school. Now some people are paying more, but you can still recruit some players that aren't that well known yet, maybe in basketball. So I think you can. There's enough good players that you can still compete. You know, you can still compete. I feel bad for the mid-major coach who gets two good players and then all of a sudden they're gone. They're out for money. You know, they're out. That's the guys. Like if I lose two players, like we lost a couple players, we went out and got two players. You know, we found two players or three or four, whatever we need. So it'll keep going. I don't know. The super conferences, I think, are more of a problem. I think that's something that, what if you have 5 super conferences and they take over the NCAA tournament? Where does that leave Gonzaga and the Big East and Ivy Leagues? Where are those schools? Are they going to say, okay, well, you can play in the tournament, our tournament. You can come play in our tournament, but you're only going to get so many spots. And so that's a real. The best thing we have is the NCAA basketball tournament. That's what we have.
Greatest show on earth.
That's what it's about. But these other tournaments are great too. The baseball tournament, the volleyball, all that. Who pays for all that if these schools break away? Is it just the power schools in those tournaments? You got a lot of tournaments going on. Wrestling, field hockey, soccer. We won the soccer tournament last year. It was one of the great things I've ever seen here at Syracuse. Syracuse won it. And, it was unbelievable. We weren't even in the top 100 a couple of years ago. All those tournaments, who's going to fund those? I think that's what we should be worried about. That's part of what makes the NCAA great, college great. People are always going to watch college basketball. It doesn't matter if somebody, they're paying them. They're always going to support their school. Indiana is going to have, Alumni Hall is going to be sold out next year. I don't care who's playing there. I don't care if they're getting paid or not. They're going there. Wisconsin, they're going to the game. Michigan, and they're going to those games. Their fans are going to come. North Carolina, Duke, they're going to be there. So it'll survive. Let's just hope that somehow the tournament can survive. I mean, we do need a little bit of an expansion of the tournament would be helpful. The biggest fallacy in all of sports is you dilute the tournament. No, you actually, by letting in 10 more pretty good teams, you make the tournament stronger.
I agree.
Because after the first round, the weaker teams will be gone.
That's right.
And you're in the top seeds. You're going to be playing a really good team, maybe in the first round, but definitely in the second round. And, you don't stop taking those other conferences. You keep taking the Ivy Leagues and all those schools. But you add 8, 10, whatever, and you don't have to do anything because you already got a play-in game on Tuesday and Wednesday. You just go to the sites where the actual tournament's going to be in the next round, and you play right there. You're playing games. Now the team doesn't have to go from Dayton to California in one day to play. They're already there at the site. So you could do this easily, and I really am upset with coaches that say, well, we shouldn't do that. You're just saying you want to get more coaches fired. Right.
That's right.
Because maybe you're going to be in the tournament. Well, what about the poor guy down the road that sneaks in those last spots? He gets in the tournament. And what about those 10 teams of players? They get to go to the tournament. So why would you be against expansion? Especially if you're a good team, you're going to win anyway, a couple probably. Why would you be against expansion? There's 350 teams. We haven't had an expansion for years. This tournament started out when I was coaching was 12 teams. Should we kept it there at 12?
Wow.
Some coaches said keep it at 12. When it went to 24, some coaches said keep it at 24.
Right.
You shouldn't listen to coaches when it comes to this. Now they're saying 48, and then it went to 48. And they go, oh, that's it, no more. Did the tournament hurt when it went to 64?
Nope.
Or 68?
That's right.
No. Didn't get hurt. And it won't get hurt. But those arguments, I really laugh, especially when a coach says that.
Right.
Coaches should want to get everybody in there.
I completely agree, without a doubt. Well,
they don't fire many coaches that go to the tournament.
No, they don't.
Once in a while, but not many.
Not often. Well, Coach, thanks. But before we're done, all right, here's a question for you. I've asked a couple other guys this one, and I like asking guys these questions. So, obviously you've had children. Your children have done great. They've done very, very well. I have 5. They're in their 20s and young 30s. And I always ask this question because I think there's a lot of people that'll end up listening to this. So if you could breathe, or if you could just gift, I'm going to gift you these characteristics to your own kids to be successful that are end up, maybe even your players. If you say, I could just breathe this right into you, these characteristics, what would some of those be?
Just two: be a good person and work hard.
How about that?
That's all you got to do. Just two. If you're a good person, you're going to be a good teammate. You're going to be friendly. You're going to be happy. You know, you're going to be good for people, good to be around people. You'll be good in a business because you're a good person. Good people do well. They do. They almost always do well. I mean, obviously it helps if you have some skill level or intelligence. All that helps. But if you work really hard and you're a good person, I don't care what job you do. If you happen to be at a lower level job, you'll do a fine. If you're at a mid or high level, you'll do fine. I think those are the. I never even really thought about it that much. But if you're a good person and you work really hard, because a good person is going to work well with people. A good person is going to get along with people. Be a good teammate. Be a good worker in the business you're in. And you like to be around those people. You know, good people. You like to be around those people. Like I go out with friends. I go out with people that are good people. They're good, nice people. I don't go out with somebody because they got a lot of money or because they're successful. I like because I want to be with somebody that's a good person. And if your kids can do that, be good people and work really hard, and it's hard to work really hard, but you know, it's that you'll be successful. I think. Yeah,
Coach, this has been fun for me, and like I said when we started, I've admired you as a coach. I think you're real. I think you're great. I think, even competing against your teams, it was fun. It was hard to play against your teams, by the way, really hard. And but anyway, I've enjoyed today. This has been wonderful. So thank you a lot for being on.
Enjoyed doing it. Thank you. I don't have that much to do. This is fun.
All right, Coach. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
See you.
All right. Bye.
Yep.